Check it out, make sure he's has to be close.
He could be right here, guys. Keep your eyes open.
I ain't seen nothing on this side.
It's in there. The Thunder Axe is in there. It's in there.
Very dark brown. I saw it rise up on two legs, and in the same motion that it very quickly stood up, it turned and it disappeared.
Deep in the wilderness, strange sounds are heard. Trees cracking, wooden knocks, and shadows slipping between the trees. For decades, people have claimed these spooky signs belong to Bigfoot, a creature both feared and fascinating. But some encounters are darker than others, leaving behind chilling memories. Could these be the most disturbing Bigfoot encounters ever witnessed? In the quiet hills of Hocking County, Ohio, folks like Michael Kane know that Sasquatch might be closer to home than you'd ever guess. He shares his experience as seen on Small Town Monsters. Michael moved there in 2018, and immediately, strange things began happening on his 750-acre wooded property. He'd spot glowing lights in the trees at night, thinking lost hikers were out there. But no one ever showed up. Then came the sounds, tree knocks echoing across the pond, followed by mouth pops like a cork pulling, and then a metallic bonk from an old homestead roof. It happened in patterns, like creatures were talking to each other, surrounding him. "You're always kind of surrounded," Michael says.
It starts to really wear on you. I've sit and listened long enough. It's not just knocks. There is a pattern to it. Almost seems like there is a call and response that I've been able to listen to over the years and be like, well.
He'd hear car crash, loud impacts, but nothing was damaged. Activity picked up in hot, muggy summers, with rocks rapping on windows or things slamming the cabin. One night, his headlamp caught red eye shine from something tall behind a pine tree, oval eyes blinking before it slipped away.
Up the ravine there's these eyes look like this. They look like oval shape, about this far apart, and staring at me. And I'm just looking, and you can see because of the eye shine, it looks away, looks back at me, blinks, looks away again, and something just moves off.
Neighbors shared tales too. A woman saw a hairy ape man as a teen in nearby Clear Creek Metro Park, thinking it was a wild caveman. Another hunter braked hard when a huge hairy thing crossed his truck's path. These backyard brushes aren't rare. In 1985, near Cleveland in Lorain County, a woman heard her dogs barking wildly. She stepped out and saw a big reddish-brown creature with long arms bolting toward a creek. Later, she found footprints and slip marks in the mud. Homes lose their safe feel when Sasquatch lurks. Pets vanish, trash cans get raided, and there are easy calories for a hungry beast. In Michigan, a researcher blasted whale calls to lure one closer, only to have it mimic back and slap house siding. Motion lights and cameras scared it off.
We tried to wood knock. We actually used whale calls. And then we were able to create, I couldn't, but these guys were sound guys, and they were able to create infrasound that was with whale calls. So you'd blast these whale calls out into the woods with infrasound. We couldn't hear it, but they could detect it, and just to see if it would create any activity.
Another Michigander, recovering from surgery, heard rocks pinging his window 2 nights running. His big guard dog turned scared, crawling into his lap. "We didn't want to look out," he recalls. Curiosity seems to drive them. A young couple in a remote farmhouse heard woman-like screams from the hollow. One dusk, something tall and black passed their window, vibrating the barbed wire fence. It was way taller than a man. Nights later, when their baby cried, the house shook near the crib. In Kentucky's Stanton, a witness tried wood knocks on his parents' deck and got replies back, branches shaking and footsteps pacing 50 feet away. "They're watchers," folks say, peeking over fences at families, especially kids. On a Michigan trail near Rennie Lake, a woman out walking alone in 2023 heard a twig snap. She turned to see a dark humanoid shape rise fast on two legs, arms pumping like a runner, then vanish into the woods. It was about her height, 5 feet 5 inches, maybe a juvenile. Wood knocks followed as she hurried back, phone battery dying. Where there's one, there's more, she thought, now wary of solo hikes. Kids face terror too.
Are very dark brown. I saw it rise up on two legs, and in the same motion that it very quickly stood up, it turned and it disappeared into the area, the forest behind it. When I say it was fast, it was super fast. I mean, this happened so quick, like my mind almost couldn't keep up with registering what was happening. A little bit taller than me. I'm 5'5". It turned. The thing that sticks out in my mind is the position of what would have been its right arm was at like a right angle.
In 1978, in Newberry, Ohio, two brothers, 8 and 10, met a 6.5-foot hairy creature eye to eye in snowy woods. It fled super fast, but heavy footsteps stalked their house that night. In Hillsdale County, a couple watched deer spook from their window, then saw a tall, dark-furred thing amble across a field, bending to forage. Skunky smells and howls followed. Jay Cortland, driving a taxi in Mason County, Michigan, in 2018, spotted glowing yellow eyes on a rural road at 2 a.m. Slowing to 20 miles per hour, he and his passengers saw a thin, 8 to 9 foot creature with grayish-white hair blowing in the wind, golf ball-sized eyes, and flat nostrils.
I was driving, actually a taxi that night, and I was picking up a girl that closed a little tavern in the town of Fountain, Michigan. And I had picked her up several times, and we always took the same route down Fountain Road, and that's how we got to her house to take her home.
It stood by a tree, ready to cross, looking intelligent and peaceful. No hostility, Jay says. They talked for 15 minutes after that, agreeing it was either an animal or a costume. These stories shake folks. Some sell homes, change routines, and sleep with guns. But Sasquatch seems more curious than cruel, living alongside us, probing for food, or just watching. If they wanted harm, they'd have done it ages ago. Home's still our castle, but the woods hold secrets that make you wonder what's really out there. In the shadowed hollers of Appalachia, where Georgia's Blue Ridge Mountains meet Kentucky's wild rivers, whispers of the impossible echo through the pines. Let's get on this journey with the video shared by the I Believe in Bigfoot project. David Bacara, curator of the expedition. Bigfoot. The Sasquatch Museum in Blue Ridge, Georgia, traces his obsession back to the 1960s. As a boy in Miami, glued to nightly news amid Vietnam's grim broadcasts, tales of the Florida skunk ape gripped him. Not a mere monkey, but a colossal, man-like brute, faster and fiercer than any gorilla. It clashed with his schoolroom lessons on evolution, sparking a lifelong rift. Either witnesses lied or science had it wrong.
And I remember I was a news kid. Even when I was a kid, I loved watching the news. I think a lot had to do with the Vietnam War was on TV. And I remember just really being moved by the story of the Vietnam War growing up. So I think that got me into watching the news with my dad. And then I started seeing things appear on the nightly news in Miami about the Florida skunk ape. They were talking about some kind of a huge man-like creature that was much bigger and faster and stronger than an ape or a gorilla.
By 2016, Bacara and his wife had built a 7,000-square-foot shrine to the unknown, crammed with footprint casts, hair samples from Russia to China, and life-size replicas that draw 90,000 visitors yearly. Here, amid screaming audio clips and twisted limbs, the primal fear takes shape.
We opened this museum, my wife and I, in 2016. And at that time, I was, in my schooling, I was learning a little bit about anthropology and the theory of evolution. And I kept thinking how those two worlds were colliding hard And even at that young age, I knew that somebody had to be wrong.
Next, Michael Cook, a Harlan County native and founder of Cook's Cryptid Research, recounts his awakening at 16 on the banks of Martin's Fork Lake. Skipping school for a dawn fishing trip, the air crisp in the 50s, he scanned the ridge for elk, newly reintroduced to eastern Kentucky. Rustling stirred, then chaos.
My name is Michael Cook. I've been researching Bigfoot for 20 years.
What got you started with Bigfoot?
Face-to-face encounter.
So tell us about that first encounter.
I skipped school one day, went fishing when I was 16 years old. I found myself on the riverbank at Martin's Fork River Dam in Harlan County, Kentucky. Sun was coming up over top of the ridge. Couldn't really see anything on the ridge, but I kept on hearing something move back and forth.
A massive form tumbled end over end down the slope, crashing into the river like a hurled truck. At first, a sodden fur ball suggested bear. But as it rose, 8 feet tall and 450 pounds of rippling muscle, Cook's world fractured. It waded the creek, snapping sticks like matchsticks, before locking eyes and charging. Heart pounding, Cook fled up the hill, outpacing even his swift friend, convinced it would devour the slower one first.
When it rode into the river, I thought it was a bear, because the only thing I saw was a big ball of hair. And, common sense to somebody who didn't believe in Bigfoot would say that's a bear. So I laid my fishing pole down and readied myself. Just in case it come out on my side, it's not going to be too happy.
20 years on, this encounter fuels his hunts, featured on travel channels, These Woods Are Haunted, where he probes the trauma that lingers like a brand.
Sound like somebody right. Man, this thing was breaking up some big sticks, and I said, I don't know about you, but I'm getting out of here. We took off like our rear ends was on fire, and we run up that hill to get away from it. I outrun him. Well, usually he can outrun me, but whatever was behind us, it was going to have to eat him before it got to me, the way I figured it. That's a true story, too. It's all true, but...
The stories keep on coming. A 9-year-old from 1974 trembles behind a wild rose-choked fence, voice cracking as he demands the rustling shadow reveal itself. Rocks whistle over the barrier, branches whip through. Then it emerges.
I was 9 years old. That happened in 74. I was 9. And whatever, that fence row was growed up in rose bushes, wild rose bushes. That's why they raised fences back in. They had a fence in the middle, but it was wild rose bushes all the way down it. He couldn't get through it, but he was on the other side of the fence. So I said, I told you, you better answer. You're scaring me. I said, I'll go on if you want me to. And then it just started throwing rocks. These rocks started coming over the fence. Whack, woof, wham, broken tree limbs, splat, splat.
9.5 feet of hulking fur, eyes gleaming like saucers, 8 feet off the ground. A guttural "hoo" freezes him. Threats of gunfire barely deter another stone. But the primal terror roots deep, chasing him to his parents' bed for a year.
And all of a sudden it walked up and I seen this big hairy figure about 9.5 foot tall. I said, man, that's one of them Bigfoot. I read about it in a little old book I got at the library about a Bigfoot. So I was looking at this thing. I said, good God, it's over top the fence. I said, what is that? I said, who are you? And they went, whoa! Like that right there. And then I said, okay, I'm warning you, man. I said, you throw another stick at me or a rock, I'm gonna shoot. So I said, I'll scare it to death. So that's what I was thinking. I'll just shoot over its head.
Well, the testimonies don't end there. A father's .45 jams mid-confrontation with glowing eyes in the dogwood thicket. The creature's path carving a mile-wide swath of snapped brush to the river, trees uprooted like weeds, a trail of destruction no bear could forge. Branches hurl like spears.
There was a couple of apple trees that come down. There's one dogwood tree set right down there at the end of the yard. And right up out of the apple trees, he was standing in between the apple trees down there in that little field in that dogwood tree. Wherever it was, but it had great big eyes, and the light was hitting just right in the eyes. The eyes looked to be about that big round, but they were way off the ground. My dad, being the way he was, he seen it, and he turned around and hollered at it, and, told whatever it was needed to step into the light.
The boy, gun trembling, fires blindly through foliage, eliciting a bone-shivering scream that echoes for half a mile. Survivors speak of chills that rise unbidden, goose flesh prickling decades later, as if the howl imprints on the soul. Trauma threads every tale.
It wouldn't move. He said, I'm going to tell you one more time, step in the light. And he threw down with that 45, shot right at it, and that gun jammed. Never jammed ever. In the whole 10 years he carried that gun, never ever had a problem with that gun. That thing turned and just tore a path down through the woods, down through there. The creek was probably good 3/4 of a mile.
Witnesses confess nightmares that grip like claws. A hulking ex-basketballer reduced to tears, unable to recount his brush without sobs.
I talk to witnesses and they tell me I still have nightmares over this. I know a particular guy who's probably 6'7". He's humongous. He used to play basketball in college, big, strong man. And he still cannot tell you his story, his encounter, without crying.
One man, 5 feet 11 inches, and staring up at an 8-foot sentinel just 20 feet away, freezes in primal paralysis. It poses on the ridge, head bowed in what seems shame, before clenching fists and unleashing screams that summon chills even in retelling.
Froze. I couldn't move, I couldn't run, and I decided to stay there and watch and see what it does. At the time, it didn't even know I was there. It started to turn and walk up the hill, and when it did, it stopped. And then it looked down at the ground and raised its head up and looked back over its shoulder at me. And then it squared up, and it was standing right on the ridge, and it was just standing there posed. And it would look down and look back up at me, and at times it was almost like it was embarrassed that it actually got caught. It was ashamed of itself.
It makes your bones shiver, he whispers, skin crawling on camera. The rawest wound comes forward later.
That's how bad this thing is. That's how mean it is. This thing, when it hollers, it'll make you creep out. I mean, look at them chill bumps right there. I don't know if you can see that or not. Look at that. Look at that right there. That ain't no fake right there. Look. When you hear that thing holler, it sends chills down. You're just talking about it, it sends chills. Ask people about it. Do you get chill bumps when you talk about this thing? If you've seen one, yes, you will.
In January 2024 interview with Carolyn Allen, 5 or 6 dogs, German Shepherds and Coonhounds, vanish from an 8-foot pen, undamaged. Inside, necks twisted backward like the deer photo she nods to, bodies drained pale, puncture wounds suggesting something fed without spilling a drop. No screams, no mess, laid gently where they stood, as if mercy killed by a predator that sustains on essence alone.
It's like it had maybe broke their necks. There was no blood or nothing, but it's hard to describe. I mean, they were looking backwards over their back.
Yeah, just like that picture I showed you.
Yeah.
The head was behind it.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned something to me when we talked before about a puncture wound, like maybe it had drank their blood.
Yeah.
Strangest thing you ever seen, her father Larry muttered, haunted by the precision. These voices, gathered like storm clouds, form a chorus too uniform to dismiss. Strong fear, unblinking eyes, paths of ruin. In Mosaic law, 2 or 3 testimonies seal fate. Here, dozens converge on the same shadow. Yet belief remains a solid trek through the underbrush. As Harlan County's ridges loom under October skies, one question claws at the mist. What primal terror waits in your own backyard? In the wilds of Northern Virginia and the remote forests of Ontario, Canada, Sam Chandler's life was forever changed by encounters that defy explanation. His journey into the realm of Sasquatch began in 1985, at just 8 years old, in a moment that would haunt him for decades. His interview was shared by the channel A Flash of Beauty. Bigfoot revealed. Sam lay in his Virginia bedroom, summer light fading through the window. Something drew his gaze to the dresser, where a young Sasquatch stood, its wild hair splaying outward, mouth wide in a silent, laughing grin reminiscent of a Muppet. It didn't threaten, only watched, but the sight sent terror through him. When he blinked, it vanished, leaving a mystery that lingered like a shadow.
I looked over to my right and I saw a young Sasquatch person standing in my bedroom. And they were just on the other side of my dresser, looking over top of it, and they didn't do anything scary. They just looked at me and smiled and kind of opened their mouth like they were laughing, but no noise came out.
The strange followed Sam to a family friend's cabin on 5,000 acres of private land in Ontario, a place where the ordinary unraveled. He described nights pierced by loud bangs against the cabin, footsteps crunching in the woods, and unexplained lights dancing in the sky, fluid, ship-like glows, and spotlights beaming from nowhere. White orbs flickered through the forest, defying logic on land devoid of other people. These incidents, recurring across years of visits, pushed Sam to confront what he'd tried to ignore.
Sometimes we'd see these ships, and I say ships because I don't really know what else to explain it, because they weren't really like orbs, because they were bigger than that, but they were like light ships, and they would just move through the sky and be very fluid moving, and then they would just disappear. And sometimes a light would just appear in the sky and just shine down on the lake, and then it would just stop. It was like a spotlight coming from nothing.
By 2010, Sam's curiosity overpowered his fear. Fishing alone by the lake under a full moon, deliberate footsteps thundered down a hilltop, each crunch intentional, as if demanding his attention. He could no longer dismiss the signs. Back in Georgia, he dove into research, scouring sparse online forums, realizing Sasquatch wasn't confined to the West Coast.
And it was like someone wanted me to hear them. And I just remembered thinking, like, at that point, like, I have to stop ignoring all this stuff. I gotta stop, just pretending that this stuff's just nothing to really pay attention to.
In 2011, he returned to the cabin with an audio recorder, capturing the unseen. One day, walking near a dark cedar thicket, a voice in his mind warned, "Don't go in there." He obeyed, chilled by an unwelcoming presence and mechanical clinks echoing from empty woods, like bulldozers where none existed. In October 2012, Sam camped alone by the lake, hammock strung in the cold night air. Wolves howled from both shores, red wolves to the north, timber wolves to the south, setting an otherworldly stage. As he slept, a tree crashed behind him with a deafening crack, jolting him awake. Suddenly, a fingertip pressed his crown, sending a surge of energy through his body. A voice commanded, "Get out of here!" Twice more it came, each warning sharper, the final one threatening death. His radio erupted in static, and fear drove him to flee by boat across the moonlit lake, feeling exposed, as if something could pluck him from the water.
It just kind of pressed, and I remember being like, okay, and then this like rush of energy came through my entire body, and it went to my feet, and then it came back up out of my head, and there was a message that said, "Get out of here."
Back in Georgia, Sam found a local park where the energy shifted under power lines, heavy and thick. Tree structures appeared, rearranged each visit, as if crafted for him. His wife sensed the eerie vibe, hearing footsteps trailing them, unseen. Later, alone, Sam was surrounded by 3 sets of footsteps in a triangular formation, closing in but invisible. When he greeted them, a wave of overwhelming love enveloped him, so intense he wept, lasting a fleeting minute before a voice said, "You can go now." Later, strange tapping began on his second-floor bedroom window, a rhythmic fingernail sound persisting for weeks.
Getting ready for bed, and I heard on the window that's on my wife's side of the bed that faces the woods on that side of our house, I heard a tapping, and we lived on the second floor. We heard like a tap, tap, tap on the window. And my wife was like, "Did you hear that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it happened again. It was like tap, tap, tap. And she was like, that sounds like someone's tapping on the window. And I said, yeah, it sounds like a fingernail tapping on the window. Whatever. And it happened every night for like a couple weeks. And then periodically on and off, you know, for months after that.
By 2013, Sam joined group campouts where glowing eyes, blue, green, and one blinding white, watched from the dark. He and a friend saw a massive figure with a spotlight-like eye, its gaze locking onto them. Another night, a loud pop and white flash startled them, like a wood knock without a tree. These moments, layered with mystery, taught Sam to embrace the unknown. Were these beings sharing a profound connection, or something beyond our grasp? What secrets do they hold in the shadows?
I am very excited to be in Randall, Washington right now. This weekend is kicking off a Bigfoot-themed event, and there's going to be a lot of vendors here and speakers, and we are going to show you what it looks like here in Washington State when it comes to the Bigfoot scene and how ingrained it is in the culture here.
In the heart of Washington's untamed wilderness, where Highway 12 snakes through the shadow of Mount St. Helens, Mount Adams, and Mount Rainier, a primal mystery stirs. The 2025 Randall Sasquatch event drew hundreds to this rugged valley, as seen on Salish Sasquatch. It was a place where the line between myth and reality blurred. Nestled in a triangle known as Bigfoot's domain, the festival hummed with tales of something massive lurking just beyond the tree line.
So I remember watching Finding Bigfoot years ago, and Bobo was on there, and he goes, yeah, you gotta really pay attention to that triangle where it's between Mount St. Helens, Mount Adams, and Mount Rainier. That's like a sweet spot. Well, here we are, like smack dab in the middle of all of that.
Under a beautiful, clear sky, a local woman was seen recalling a summer night that still haunted her. She and her late husband, lifelong Pacific Northwest natives, sat on their deck when strange calls echoed through the darkness. A deep, guttural howl rose from one ridge, answered by a higher-pitched cry from another. Not an owl, not an elk, nothing they'd ever heard in decades of camping and hunting. It was as if the forest itself was speaking, the voices male and female, trading secrets across the river.
We live between two ridges, okay, on the river, okay? And so we heard that sound. Well, then we heard another one on the opposite ridge, but it was female, and that was male. And there was no mistaking the male-female or the different pitch, right? But we just thought it was very, very interesting.
The festival grounds buzzed with similar stories, each one heavier than the last. A state trooper, driving through a fog-choked night from Mineral to Morton, slowed his cruiser to a crawl. By the highway's edge, a figure loomed, over 8 feet tall, dwarfing his 6 feet 4 inches frame. It glanced at him, eyes glinting in the headlights, before vanishing into the timber with a few strides. He'd scoffed at Bigfoot tales before, but that night shook him to his core.
10:30 at night, hit a fog bank at the pass. Could see about 200 feet in front of him, so he was doing about 20 miles an hour. It was really bad. Somebody was walking just next to the white line, so he pulled the car over and got out and walked up. And he's 6'4", and he said whatever it was over 8 feet tall, and he thinks he saw the Sasquatch. Never seen anything like that in his life. Turned, glanced at him, took 4 or 5 steps, and went up in the timber. He came in the bow shop because he doesn't believe in Bigfoot.
Another man, driving near the Brady exit in April 2023, caught sight of something even stranger. A tall, dark shape glided across 4 lanes and the median in seconds, moving with an unnatural grace no human could match. It didn't run, it flowed, covering impossible distances in a heartbeat. He'd seen athletes sprint, but this was no man. The evidence wasn't just tracks. Stories from the 1880s surfaced, tales of gold miners in southwest Oregon terrorized by a blonde-haired beast. It tore apart camps, hurled rocks, and charged men with bone-rattling roars. One miner found a friend dead, his skull crushed by a bloodied stone. Another fired bullets into a creature that shrugged them off like raindrops. The miners fled, leaving behind a ghost town and a lingering dread.
In those years, the miners started seeing a creature that was about 6 to 6.5 feet tall, primarily covered with yellowish blonde hair. These were not passive, just fleeting sightings. These were very aggressive sightings. A couple of the miners came back up on their camp, and one of these creatures was tearing their whole camp apart and charging them and yelling at them, and one of their dogs got killed.
As time went by, Randall, the festival took on a new edge. Attendees spoke of rocks splashing into the river beside them, too heavy for any elk to dislodge. Signs posted for campers were torn down by morning. A dead tree toppled nearby, as if snapped by giant hands. The forest seemed alive, watchful. Flashlights pierced the dark, thermal cameras scanned the undergrowth, and the air crackled with the tension of those who'd ventured too close to the unknown. The Milky River, fed by Mount Rainier's glaciers, churned with secrets. Every snapped branch, every distant howl, felt like a warning. This wasn't just a gathering, it was a reckoning with a force that refused to be explained. As the stars burned cold above the valley, one question hung in the air, sharp as a blade. What's really out there, watching from the shadows of Highway 12? Deep in the wilds of Northern California, where Bluff Creek carves through the Six Rivers National Forest, a legend was born. This is the Bigfoot capital of the world, where Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin captured their iconic 1967 footage of a towering dark-haired creature striding across a logging road. In 2025, Mike ventured alone to this hallowed ground, camping overnight near the Patterson-Gimlin film site, chasing the truth behind the myth, and shared it on his channel, Mike Wanders. As dusk settled over the rugged logging roads, the air grew heavy with creepy silence and stillness.
Because there's a big unknown. And it also represents our connection to nature that we as a society are only growing further and further apart from. So imagine if there was another hominid species that didn't die off, that wanted to remain hidden, that is relatively intelligent compared to us, but has completely evolved in a different direction.
While talking, he suddenly goes silent, like he probably heard something. He'd grown up captivated by Bigfoot, sparked by that grainy film seen with his dad and brother, its mystery woven into the X-Files' haunting theme. Now, alone in these woods, every rustle carried a question. Was something out there? The forest, vast and untamed, seemed to whisper back, its redwoods stretching endlessly in every direction. He was lost on a crumbling logging road, rocks and fallen trees blocking the path. This was Bigfoot country, where footprints once appeared on fresh-cut roads, baffling loggers in the 1950s. He clutched a piece of firewood for tree knocks, a technique researchers swear by to mimic Sasquatch communication. He scanned for signs, broken trees snapped high and clean, unlike the splintered chaos of natural falls. Two trees, barely 100 yards apart, leaned toward the road, their branches unnaturally sharp, as if twisted by immense force. A massive pine cone, bigger than any he'd seen, lay nearby, almost placed with intent.
It's kind of just lying here. Almost like it was placed here. Obviously humans do a lot of work in and out of here. But, as you can see right there, cut log. I'm looking up above and there's no real, didn't fall from these trees are too small.
The silence was deafening. Bluff Creek's hills loomed, alive with the ghosts of stories, rock-throwing, whoops, screams, all hallmarks of a creature said to haunt campsites. The adventurer, no stranger to solo wilderness treks, felt the creeping unease of being truly alone. In broad daylight, 3 sharp whoops echoed from the woods, not quite an owl, too deliberate for a bird. His pulse quickened. It was noon, yet the sound stopped him cold.
With an owl, I feel like you would continue to hear it hooting, right? It's usually like a continuous thing that goes on for a little bit, but this wasn't that. Okay, I think things are getting a bit squatchy right now. I'm a little nervous to keep walking towards the sound, but this is the way back.
As he trekked deeper, a chill gripped him despite the 90-degree heat. The forest seemed to tighten, the hairs on his neck rising with the unshakable sense of being watched. He swung his camera behind him, half expecting a shadow to loom. The Hoopa Project book he carried described the Patterson-Gimlin creature, 7 feet 3 inches, over 700 pounds, muscles rippling in digitized footage, carrying something in its hand.
I just want to read this paragraph from this book by David Paulides in relation to the Patterson-Gimlin footage, which is the reason why I'm here. Here's what it says. It says the Bigfoot was walking on 2 legs, had very long arms, black hair covering its entire body and face, mosquito bite, and large breasts were visible. Experts have reviewed the footage extensively and guessed the creature was 7 feet 3 inches tall and weighed in excess of 700 pounds.
Experts swore no costume could mimic that fluid, inhuman gait. FBI tested hair samples matched no known animal. Credible witnesses, police, biologists, and mayors reported the same traits worldwide: long arms, dark fur, and a presence that defied explanation. Back at his car after a 6-mile loop, he reflected on the snapped trees, the whoops, the fleeting chill of being followed. Maybe it was just the magic of Bluff Creek, where every sound becomes a Sasquatch call to those who want to believe. But in this endless forest, where an intelligent creature could vanish without a trace, one question lingered like a shadow. If Bigfoot is out there, is it watching you right now? Deep in the wilderness, the Mountain Monsters team sets out on what might be one of their most intense Bigfoot hunts yet, as shown on the Travel Channel. Out in the daylight, hunters search the forest when, suddenly, massive trees are ripped down as if by invisible hands.
Son of a bitch! That Bigfoot just tore that tree down! Holy hell! Cowboy Ken zooms in on that drone, and there it is, a damn big-ass tree comes crashing to the ground!
Hell yes,
You heard that
did.
high-pitched squall, and you heard that tree knock. You know exactly what took that tree down. That was a Bigfoot.
Hell yes!
That Bigfoot, that son of a bitch just ripped that big ass...
As they push forward, the evidence of something huge becomes impossible to ignore. Splintered trunks and twisted branches litter the ground, not the kind of damage caused by a storm. One tree, at least 50 or 60 years old, has been ripped apart as if by giant hands. "This is one pissed-off Bigfoot," another hunter mutters, suggesting their drone may have angered the creature. They know whatever did this is still close. It's getting darker by the minute, and they're forced to retreat briefly to gear up with lights, thermal cameras, and guns before heading back into the woods. The night begins like so many of their previous expeditions, with flashlights cutting through the dark, radios buzzing, and the nervous energy of seasoned hunters who've heard it all before. But this time, the forest feels different.
Get it airborne, see if we can't get some action.
Will do.
All right. Can't piss us off.
Hold on!
Holy! Right up in there.
Come on,
That was a damn tree knock.
Hell yes, it was.
Right. That sounded like it was just right up the hill.
Hell yeah, that's not far.
I know Ken didn't expect to be out here doing tree knocks and actually get a response.
Hold on! Holy!
Right up in there.
Come on,
That was a damn tree knock.
Suddenly, a strange sound cuts through the night like a moan or a cry. The hunters freeze, scanning the trees. It's not an owl, and it's not the wind. "It's coming right by that way," someone whispers. Pine limbs, freshly broken, appear along the trail. The team knows they're close to a nest, the same kind they've seen in previous investigations. Yet this stretch of forest holds only hardwoods. Something or someone has hauled pine branches in from somewhere else to build it.
Wow. What you got? Pine limbs. That's fresh. We've got to be getting close to that nest. The whole outside of the nest was covered in pine limbs. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, the whole nest's made out of pine limbs.
Let's look around. Do you see any pine trees?
I ain't seeing one right here.
This is all hardwoods, Bruce.
Moments later, they stumble upon a massive nest, bigger than anything they've ever seen. The outside is covered in pine limbs, the inside disturbingly neat. "Never seen anything like this," one man breathes. "That's a massive Bigfoot nest." Around them, the woods go eerily quiet, save for the low rumble of thunder in the distance. They're in Blair County, Pennsylvania, on the hunt for a Bigfoot they call the Lightning Man, said to strike out of the darkness and vanish before anyone can react.
Go on. Oh my God. There it is. That is a massive Bigfoot nest.
The Lightning Man's a Bigfoot. He strikes out of the darkness and then just vanishes. That means he's damn quick, he's agile. He'll be out of the dark, on top of you, and gone before you know you got your guts ripped out.
Suddenly, the storm moves in fast. Lightning cracks nearby, not once, but multiple times, with one bolt so close that it knocks a man's boot off and leaves him shaken. "In my 49 years in the woods," he says, "I've never had a lightning bolt hit that close to me." As the trap that they had planned for the creature begins to stir, trees shift. Something's out there.
Let's check it out, make sure he has to be close.
He could be right here, guys. Keep your eyes open.
I ain't saying nothing on this side.
It's in there. The Thunder Axe is in there.
It's in there.
It's in the trap.
Yeah, good deal.
Yeah. Thunder Axe is in the trap.
Hell yeah.
Jab.
Come on, Jeff. Go easy now.
Powerful enough to drag equipment and tear through the underbrush. The team races to finish assembling their Thunder Axes, a bizarre but symbolic piece of gear they believe will lure the creature in. They manage to set the trap and back off, hearts pounding. High on the ridge, they wait. The woods feel alive. Something big is moving in the shadows, circling them, testing their nerves. High on the ridge, they wait. The woods come alive, heavy footsteps circling them, nerves stretched thin. Then it happens. Whistles and screeches erupt from the darkness. Whether one creature or several, the message is clear. The trap worked. The beast has revealed itself, angry and unrelenting. But was it really the Lightning Man or something else? Footage, courtesy, mysterious unknown location, Coatesville, Pennsylvania. Tonight, we step into the mind of a man who has carried his story in silence for more than 3 decades. Curtis Reeves is a Navy veteran, a husband, a father, and the keeper of an encounter that began in the woods of Coatesville, Pennsylvania in 1987. It was meant to be a bonding trip, a father and son moment in the quiet stillness of a Pennsylvania winter morning. 11-year-old Curtis had just earned his hunting license, eager to follow in his father's footsteps. The air was cold, the ground still damp from the previous night's frost, and the full moon hung like a lantern over the forest.
Back in 1987, he was out hunting with his dad on a property in Pennsylvania, and they ran up on a Bigfoot creature, and this thing was less than 10 feet away from him. He heard a voice in his head tell him to take a shot at this creature, and he did. We're going to get into every single detail, but since that night, he's had a lot of strange encounters throughout his life, and we're going to talk about all of them.
Curtis's father led him down the dark trail, the beam of his flashlight bouncing between trees marked with reflective thumbtacks. They reached a clearing, and his father positioned him near a tree. "Stay here," he said, "and just watch my light." Curtis stood silently, alone for the first time in those woods. He watched as his father's light flashed 3 times, a signal from up the trail. Then, as the beam faded, Curtis heard it, a sudden, sharp crackling sound, like bubble wrap popping all around him. Something was moving.
So he walked up in the woods, he starts clearing a spot at this tree, and he said, "Okay, stand here, just watch my light." He went back out, started walking back up the trail where we came from. And I'm like, where's he going, you know? So I'm watching him, then I see him come in the patch of woods. He flashed his light 3 times. So I'm looking to my left. Directly on my right, I hear a bunch of crackling, like bubble wrap.
He turned his head toward the thicket and saw nothing. Then came the first step, and then another, slow, heavy, deliberate. Through the brush, a pitch-black figure began to take shape, its silhouette outlined against the faint moonlight. At first, Curtis thought it might be a cow or a horse wandering out of a nearby field. But as it drew closer, its outline made less and less sense. The shoulders were broad, the head was elongated. There were no eyes reflecting light, no sound of breathing, no snort of an animal. It was like watching something glide, Curtis remembers. There was no sound, no crunching of leaves. It was just there, moving toward me. And then he heard it, not with his ears, but inside his mind, a voice. Calm, commanding like a stern father giving an order. Shoot it. Curtis shouldered his .410 shotgun and fired. The flash of the shot lit up the clearing. His ears rang. His father's voice screamed his name from up the trail. But when his vision cleared, the thing was gone. In the pale moonlight, Curtis saw only a glimpse of a massive silver-gray shoulder gliding silently away, almost as if it were on an invisible escalator. He expected to find tracks, blood, any sign of what had just happened. There was nothing, no footprints, no broken branches, no trace at all.
Got directly in front of me, and I can see the width of the shoulders, I guess, and a long, snout. So I'm saying, is this a horse walking sideways? It didn't make sense, and it was ugly. I mean, how this thing, soon as I shot, the flash went, I hear my dad yelling my name. Kurt. I mean, loud. And I'm bolt. But when I got my sight back...
When the sun finally rose, his father walked the area carefully. He found one matted down spot where something heavy had stood, then turned to Curtis. Let's go. And just like that, they left. They never hunted that area again.
The whole time we heard crackling, we heard walking, and he's looking around. Now I'm paying attention to his demeanor, and he's like on high alert. But I paid attention to how many steps it took him to get out there. Now I can see there's a field in front of us. We was in a patch of woods that was probably about 30 feet wide.
Years later, Curtis would learn the truth. On Father's Day in 2022, decades after that morning in the woods, Curtis's father finally confessed what he had seen. I had a feeling something was watching me, he said. I stopped, scanned the trees, and a big black head peeked out from behind a tree. I turned and ran. For Curtis, the revelation was earth-shattering. All those years he thought he had been left alone by chance. Now he wondered if his father had led him directly to the creature, or if the creature had been waiting for him all along. But Curtis's encounters didn't end there. After joining the Navy, he began experiencing something even stranger: UFO sightings. Stationed aboard the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower in 2005, he watched a silver craft hover silently over the USS Roosevelt before shooting straight up into the sky. Years later, when declassified Navy reports revealed that pilots had seen unidentified objects around the Roosevelt during that same period, Curtis felt vindicated. He believes the events are connected: the Bigfoot encounter, the voice in his head, the UFOs. Once you see one of these things, the odds of seeing something again go way up, Curtis says.
So it was up near where our gas tank is, where the delivery guy would come up. But I'm like, this guy is not this heavy, you know what I mean, to be leaving these kinds of tracks. So we left that alone. We didn't worry about it. So one evening, me and my son was talking in the kitchen. In this room that I'm in right now, this window here, we're talking. He had his back toward this room.
Even today, decades later, the encounters continue. After building his home in Bowmansville, Pennsylvania, Curtis discovered large bones stacked neatly on his lot and two massive footprints pressed deep into the wet ground after a storm. At night, he hears knocks, loud bangs against his house, and the unmistakable sense that he and his family are being watched.
What would have happened if I wouldn't have listened to that voice? That's the first time I ever heard that voice. As stern, it didn't yell. It was stern, like a father figure. Shoot it. And I did. I heard that voice again in 2000. I was in a bad place. Said, it's time for you to leave and go to the Navy. But this time, I'm questioning it or talking.
Curtis no longer hunts. He no longer ventures into deep woods. He keeps his blinds shut at night. Even with a firearm, he says, I don't go out there. They know more about me than I know about them. His story leaves more questions than answers. Was it a flesh and blood creature that night in 1987? Or something else? Something that could glide silently through the forest and vanish without a trace? Whatever the answer, Curtis believes listening to that mysterious voice saved his life. And maybe that's the most haunting part. The idea that something out there, whether guardian or predator, knew he was there that night and chose to let him walk away. Deep in the heart of North Carolina lies the Uwharrie National Forest, a place where the pines grow thick, the nights turn pitch black, and the silence can feel heavier than the trees themselves. It's here, in this rugged, secluded wilderness, that Mike begins his latest journey, determined to uncover the truth about one of the most mysterious creatures on Earth, Bigfoot. The forest seems peaceful at first, the Baden Lake campground quiet under a blanket of stars. But Mike isn't here for peace. He's here to meet men with stories that could change the way we look at these woods forever.
Mike within the shadow of Big Red Eye here. Welcome to the Uwharrie National Forest. Might as well have some fun while we're out here. But anyways, all seriousness, or all jokingness aside, we're here for a serious reason. We're here for some library presentations, but we also got two witnesses coming at you that have been from the Uwharrie National Forest here.
The first is Lee Woods, a North Carolina investigator who has spent years studying the Uwharrie. As the fire crackles in the cool night air, Lee begins to tell Mike about a night back in 2010. A night he says he'll never forget. It was around 10:30 at night, Lee recalls, pointing toward the campsite where it all began. We were sitting right here by the fire, me, my son, Kenneth, and another guy named David. Then we heard it. Just one heavy wood knock.
It was me and my son and Kenneth and a guy named David. And we were sitting right here, and it was around 10:30 at night. Had the fire going, and nothing's changed. This spot looks just like it did then. Nothing's changed. And about 10:30, back over in that direction, which would be campsite number 5. It's right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
We hear just one heavy wood knock.
In Bigfoot research, wood knocks are often considered a form of communication, warnings, signals, or even territorial displays. For Lee, this one sound was the beginning of a night he still thinks about over a decade later. Moments later, Lee started walking back toward his truck. That's when everything changed. It was like I hit a wall, he says, his voice steady but serious. Like something just told me to stop.
My truck was sitting down here. My truck was sitting right there in number 10, which that picnic fence is at.
Okay.
And when I got right about between them two trees right there, it was almost just like I hit a wall. I mean, literally, it's like something just said stop.
I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it, like something was out there, watching me. For anyone who has spent time deep in the woods, that primal sensation, the feeling of being hunted, is unmistakable.
As I was standing there, I knew I could feel there was something out here. I could just feel it. So Ken hollered down here to me because I'd been standing here for about a minute and it was pitch black. And a lot of people don't understand. When I say you can't see your hand in front of your face down here some nights, I mean, you can't even see the tree. It's pitch black. I couldn't even see you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm standing here.
Lee stood frozen in the darkness, unable to shake the sense that something was just beyond the tree line. He eventually retrieved his night vision and returned to the fire, but the uneasiness never left. Then his son Joe, standing with a parabolic microphone, suddenly stiffened. He motioned for Lee to come closer. "When I put the headset on, I didn't hear anything at first," Lee explains. "But then I heard it. Breathing. Deep, heavy breathing, like something was struggling to catch its breath. It sounded just like a bear. That's what I thought it was at first, but it wasn't a bear."
He's standing here with a parabolic dish. He's standing like this right here. And about probably 15 minutes later, he's standing right here, and he said, "Come here." So I come back over here, put it back in my ear, and just as soon as I put it back in my ear, straight ahead, right down through there, I hear, I'm like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
And dude, he went, "You hear that?" And I said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
First thing went through my head again, bear. And I thought, "Oh my God, there is a bear down there." That's what I heard.
Minutes later, Ken caught something on his night vision. A figure standing near a large tree just beyond the campsite. Lee grabbed his own device, adjusted the focus, and there it was. A massive figure, towering, motionless, just watching them. "The head was way up there," Lee says, holding his hand far above his own head to show the height. "And then I saw it move. First behind the tree, then out the other side, back and forth, watching us the whole time." What struck Lee the most was not just the size of the creature, but the intelligence in its movements. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't rushing us. She was observing, leaning out slowly, showing a little more of herself each time, like she was letting us know she was there. Lee and Ken watched the creature for nearly half an hour. At one point, the figure turned slightly, and that's when they knew.
So I looked at the night vision, and just as soon as I picked that night vision up, she was there, and then I stood there and looked at her for maybe 20 or 30 seconds, and she went back behind the tree, and then she went to the other side. She leaned up on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Then she came back to this side, and she was going from one side to the other, leaning out. But every time she leaned out, you see just a little bit more.
"You could see it was a female," Lee says. "You could see her whole upper body, clear as day through the night vision. She was massive, thick shoulders, cone-shaped head, arms hanging low. And those eyes, they glowed green in the night vision. They were as big as the lens of a camera."
She came out, and she turned like this right here. She turned real slow. And that's when we could see it was a female, because you could see the breast.
Right.
And you could see the eyeball. That was one thing that I noticed right off the bat. Because through my night vision, it was kind of a greenish gray look. So her eye was showing up green, and her eye was as big around as that lens right there on your camera. That's God's honest truth at that distance.
Wow.
Then, as suddenly as it began, the encounter was over. The figure walked slowly out of sight, disappearing into the thick foliage. And almost immediately, 2 loud wood knocks echoed from the nearby forest, as if signaling her safe departure. For Lee, the night confirmed what he had always believed. These creatures are real, intelligent, and never alone.
Right back down to number 5. 2 hits on a wood knock.
Oh, wow.
It was like they were letting them know she was leaving the area. And the one thing I've told people, and I'll say it again, the one thing that I will never forget is the way that it looked and the way that it moved.
"Where there's one, there's two. Where there's two, there's three," he says. "They travel together. They watch us just as much as we watch them."
And what was weird about that was I've always told people, where there's one, there's two, where there's two, there's three, and that is a fact. They never are alone.
From Uwharrie, Mike continues west to Asheville, another hot spot for strange activity. The Blue Ridge Mountains loom like silent sentinels, their misty slopes hiding countless secrets. But if Lee's story proves anything, it's that those secrets aren't staying hidden forever. This journey through North Carolina blends witness testimony, on-site investigation, and raw, unfiltered encounters. A reminder that some mysteries are closer than we think, waiting for those brave enough to step into the dark and look for answers. The mystery persists, from the 1800s to present day. The 2025 Randall Sasquatch event, Bluff Creek's haunted logging roads, Ontario's remote lakes, and Blue Ridge's dark trails converge on one enigma: Bigfoot. These are not mere campfire tales, but raw, bone-chilling encounters. What do you think? Let us know in the comments.